Amelia stands before the hero and boldly demands that he consider her as his reward for saving the kingdom. Lore looks at the determined woman in utter confusion and lets out a bewildered sigh at her sudden and strange request. The narrative shifts back a few days to reveal the valid reason giving Amelia the courage to make such a bold request to the hero magician. In a garden setting, the crown prince apologizes to Amelia and confesses that he has met his true destiny and is sorry for what he must do. He reveals his love for Lady Lydia of the Viscount Galarna family and states his wish to dedicate his entire life to her. Amelia reminds him of her rigorous training to be his wife, but the prince counters that Lydia insists on being the first in his life. The prince refuses to ignore Lydia's desires but also doesn't want the 6 years Amelia spent training as the crown prince's wife to go to waste. He brutally proposes that Amelia stay and become his concubine so he doesn't have to lose the value of her training. Amelia realizes that making Lydia the legitimate wife requires breaking their engagement, but the prince considers ending their long-standing relationship unwise. He plans to spare himself the trouble of training Lydia from scratch by having Amelia perform the duties while holding the position of concubine. Amelia stares out the carriage window and recognizes this proposal as nothing more than the exploitation of her life and efforts. Returning to the present, Amelia looks Lore in the eye and reiterates her demand that he consider her as his reward. During a conflict with a neighboring state, Lord Lore traveled to military camps and treated the wounded, becoming a hero in a land that usually cannot use magic. Despite saving the kingdom, Lore rejected all wealth and palace honors to live in a poor district until he was forcibly brought to the castle. Amelia introduces herself as the eldest daughter of Marquis Parietta and assures the skeptical Lore that she is completely serious about her offer. She identifies him as the hero set to receive a reward next month and confirms that she is the crown prince's fiancée in name only. Amelia apologizes for her boldness but deduces that he rejected titles and land because he has no desire to be tied down to this country. She vows to dedicate her everything to him and asks to drop the noble etiquette to speak in her usual, honest manner. Recognizing that he is not from this country, Amelia requests permission to speak freely about the things she needs to ask. Lore confirms she can speak, observing that she is indeed correct about his foreign origins as she lets out a sigh of relief. Lore bluntly asks if she loves him, stating he sees no benefit in this arrangement even though she suits his taste physically. He argues that there is no reason for him to deliberately take the crown prince's fiancée and draw unnecessary attention to himself. Amelia blushes suddenly because he called her attractive, which leaves Lore confused about her reaction. Lore is baffled and asks if the crown prince never told her she was beautiful before. She somberly admits her relationship was never based on affection and assumes the prince prefers someone like Lady Lydia. Lore dismisses the sentimentality but presses her to confirm if she is truly sure about this specific course of action. Amelia explains that rejecting the prince or becoming his concubine would damage the Parietta family and give Lydia a bad reputation as a usurper. She concludes that after thinking long and hard, the smoothest solution to escape her situation is to become Lore's reward. Lore questions the logic of her plan, asking why she refused to be the prince's concubine only to offer herself to him instead. He points out that in both cases, the crown prince would likely have just tried to marry both of them anyway. Amelia stands alone in a monochrome void, silently wishing to be the absolute first priority in someone's life. Haunted by the memory of losing her mother early and her father's quick remarriage, she confesses that she always felt an invisible barrier separating her from her kind stepmother. Lore perceptively notes that Amelia built those barriers herself by failing to express her emotions, suggesting she made the same mistake with the crown prince. The scene shifts to her memories of the Academy of Nobles, where she felt immense pressure to prove her worth rather than enjoying her youth. While peers gossiped about her strict training to become queen, Amelia watched from the sidelines as the crown prince openly strolled with another woman. Devoting herself entirely to training in a desperate bid to earn his love, she failed to realize his heart was already drifting toward a selfish rival. The offer to become a concubine shattered her naive belief that hard work alone would make her the chosen one, revealing she was merely a political partner to him. Returning to the present, Amelia firmly declares her desire to love and be loved, seeking a partner who belongs exclusively to her. She lists her formidable assets, boasting of business enterprises, fluency in 3 languages, and diplomatic skills to prove she can support her family without a royal title. Worried she might be rude, she presses Lore to admit she is a fairly good option for a reward, leaving the magician stunned by her practicality. Suddenly anxious, Amelia demands to know if he has a wife or lover back home, to which Lore admits he was never popular among the women of his homeland. Relieved by his answer, she confirms she wants a relationship based on mutual love when Lore questions her intent. Lore leans back and points out the contradiction, noting that asking for mutual love is basically a confession that she already loves him. Amelia panics as the realization hits her, flushing red as she internally screams that she wants him to feel the same way about her. Recovering her composure, she admits she hasn't reached the stage of true love yet but wants to be completely honest to avoid misunderstandings. With bold confidence, she declares that she is certain she will fall in love with him if he just gives her time. Lore accepts the arrangement on 3 conditions, starting with the fabrication that they met by coincidence in the city to protect her reputation. He imposes the second condition of meeting daily until the victory celebration, and finally forbids her from ever refusing or running away from him. Amelia agrees without hesitation, prompting Lore to cover her eyes and warn her that the love of sorcerers in his kingdom is known to be heavy. He issues a challenge for her to make his heart fall for her within the single month remaining before the victory celebration. Overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment and the challenge set before her, Amelia blushes furiously and lets out a shocked gasp. Lore finds the situation amusing and challenges Amelia to do her best to seduce him. He gives her exactly 1 month to make his heart fall for her, leaving Amelia panicked because her training as a wife never covered seduction. Lore steps closer, explaining that humans naturally weaken under constant admiration, especially from someone as enchanting as her. He instructs her to extend her hand a little, and she nervously complies. He gently takes her hand in his, causing her to freeze in anticipation. Lore kisses the inside of her wrist, causing Amelia to cry out in shock and ask what he is doing. He calmly reveals that he just placed his mark on her so he can know her location no matter where she goes. Amelia blushes, asking if wrist kissing doesn't usually symbolize desire, but Lore simply asks if it bothers her that he can find her. Lore clarifies that the gesture holds no other meaning and was only necessary to leave a magical seal, leaving Amelia embarrassed. He concludes that as long as the mark doesn't bother her, there is no problem with the arrangement. Lore declares that from now on, they will go out together daily in the city. He insists that it is essential they get to know each other better if they are to build a mutual love relationship. The scene shifts to the Parietta estate where Amelia prepares herself by brushing her hair. A maid asks if Amelia was up late studying, and Amelia hides the fact that she was reading a love guide on how to seduce men. Amelia wonders about a letter she found beside her pillow that morning which genuinely shocked her, as no one had entered her room. She realizes with a blush that at this rate, she is the only one falling under Lord Lore's spell. Amelia arrives at the meeting spot, looking anxious and dressed for an outing. Clutching her chest, she acknowledges that this is her very first date with a man. She feels so nervous that her heart feels like it is going to jump out of her chest. Amelia psyches herself up, recalling that the love guide stated first dates are always nerve-wracking. Lore suddenly opens the door, surprising Amelia who had felt someone was there. Amelia apologizes for her unexpected visit and formally declares that she is in his care from now on. She thanks him for the lovely card that made her feel energetic, asking if sending morning letters is a custom in his country. Lore confirms they have a date today, and Amelia mentally prepares herself to make it a success no matter what. They take a stroll in the garden, which Lore notes is considered the perfect choice for beginners in dating. Amelia checks her mental notes from the love guide, confirming that a nearby outdoor garden is the ideal spot. She enthusiastically points out the amaryllis and lily of the valley flowers to Lore during their walk. Lore admits he isn't particularly interested in plants but researched them yesterday just to guide her. Amelia panics internally, realizing that talking about plants doesn't feel like a real date. Lore suggests that since this is a date, they should stop talking about plants and talk about themselves instead. Lore awkwardly asks about hobbies, causing Amelia to wonder if they are stuck in a formal matchmaking meeting rather than a date. Amelia requests that they speak naturally, though she internally panics while trying to come up with a proper dating topic to keep the conversation flowing. When Amelia asks about his profession, Lore explains that he conducts research to make magical abilities accessible to a wider range of people. Lore realizes that his type of work does not exist in her country, while Amelia expresses genuine fascination at his magical research. Captivated by his explanation, Amelia smiles warmly as she listens to the details of his life as a sorcerer. Lore reflects on the romantic nature of magic and explains that the message card he found earlier utilized the basics of teleportation. Curious about his private life, Amelia learns that Lore lives alone with hired servants and spends his holidays simply commuting between work and home. Amelia realizes her nervousness has vanished and tells Lore that talking to him feels incredibly natural and enjoyable. Seeing a chance to use a technique from her love guide, Amelia suggests they take a short break in the park. She suddenly pats her dress and invites the bewildered magician to have a seat, clearly intending to offer him a lap pillow. Amelia explains that her book claims a lap pillow is a highly effective way for men to relax, leaving Lore completely baffled by her plan. Lore looks away awkwardly, apologizing for making her uncomfortable and admitting that the distance between them feels unbalanced. To her shock, Lore suddenly resigns himself to the situation and lays his head down on her lap, claiming he has no other choice. Amelia nervously offers to bring a mat for him, but Lore closes his eyes and insists that the ground does not bother him. Worried she rushed things, Amelia fears she violated the natural order of physical affection described in her books. Lore warns her that offering a lap pillow so early is dangerous and should only happen when a relationship is closer and contact feels natural. Realizing Lore is not used to such intimacy, Amelia assures him it is not a problem as long as he didn't have bad intentions. Lore admits that despite the awkwardness, sitting close to each other makes the distance between them feel much smaller than he expected. Amelia boasts that her strict training as a crown princess gave her great endurance, prompting Lore to ask about her physical strength. He explains his question by noting that noble ladies are often known to faint easily over the slightest exhaustion. Amelia firmly states her health is fine and promises she has enough strength to keep her balance without causing him any trouble. Revealing she chose her dress to match his hair, Amelia declares she can be relied upon for his personal matters and refuses to be a weak prize. Lore turns his head away in embarrassment, clearly affected by her bold declaration and thoughtful gesture. He quietly admits the dress looks great on her, making Amelia realize how wonderful it feels to have her efforts appreciated. As Amelia gently picks a fallen leaf from his hair, Lore closes his eyes and savors the wonderful feeling of her touch. Lore suddenly sits up and sincerely apologizes for his behavior, though Amelia quickly reassures him that it is fine. Determined to make him fall for her, Amelia vows to try harder tomorrow, feeling she has not yet made enough progress in seducing him. Amelia gazes into the mirror with steely determination, steeling herself for the critical mission ahead to advance her relationship. The door creaks open to reveal Lore standing there in a hooded cloak, his sudden appearance catching her off guard. Amelia greets him with a bright smile and eagerly suggests they spend their date at a nearby cafe known for its wonderful atmosphere. She internally resolves that her primary goal for this date is to hold his hand, fearing she was too hasty with the lap pillow yesterday. Her gaze locks onto his hand as she fidgets nervously, her heart racing at the prospect of making physical contact. Lore catches her staring intently and startles her by asking if there is something wrong with his hand. Amelia quickly denies it and claims she was just lost in thought, but Lore leans in closer to inspect her behavior. He stares deeply into her eyes, closing the distance between them until their faces are mere inches apart. Lore demands to know if she is distracted, reminding her that she should only be thinking about seducing him right now. Amelia flusters and shouts that he has been the only thing on her mind from the very beginning. She returns to agonizing over the perfect timing to initiate handholding, prompting Lore to ask why she went silent again. He tells her simply that she should act whenever she feels like it, leaving her confused about the timing. He blushes and correctly guesses that she wants to hold his hand, asking her directly if that is the case. He apologizes for his haste in trying to touch her hand without warning, fearing his action was inappropriate. Amelia reassures him it wasn't necessary to apologize, internally deciding to take things slow and follow the steps of dating gradually. They arrive at the cafe only to find a sign hanging on the door declaring it closed for the day. Amelia apologizes profusely for the oversight, but Lore bursts into laughter at the unexpected turn of events. He explains that he laughed because she looked so serious, as if she were carrying the weight of the world over a simple mistake. Amelia pouts and scolds him for making fun of her serious efforts, forcing Lore to apologize for his amusement. He suggests they check out the central square instead, noting that food stalls open there during lunchtime causing a crowd. Amelia happily agrees to go with him, and Lore notices her hesitation, asking if she is thinking about his comfort regarding the crowds. She explains that as a trading company owner she tracks trends, noting men prefer grilled meat while women like imported fruit drinks. Lore asks if she feels uncomfortable in crowds, but she admits she finds the new experience interesting despite not being used to it. He offers to go buy food while she waits in a quieter place, and says he isn't picky about what he eats. Lore insists on going alone to fetch the food instead of letting her navigate the busy area. Amelia worries about him going through the crowd, but he tells her to wait right there. He states firmly that he cannot let her go alone because someone might bother her while she is unaccompanied. Before leaving, he asks her what she prefers to eat from the food stalls. Amelia realizes she was talking about work again and apologizes, but Lord dismisses it and asks about the fruit drink she mentioned. He gazes at her softly and asks to know more about her favorite foods and everything else she likes. Amelia silently notes that learning these small details about him now might prove useful for her future plans. She honestly admits her lack of romantic experience but vows to do her absolute best to become someone he can truly like. With a sincere gaze, she asks Lore to start opening his heart to her, even if it is just a little bit at a time. Lore turns away to hide his reaction, telling her to stop saying such embarrassing things with such a serious expression. Changing the subject, Lore asks if she has visited this market before, perhaps with her former fiancé. Amelia flatly confirms her ex-fiancé was never interested in her and they never spent personal time together like this. A boisterous street vendor suddenly interrupts their conversation, calling out to the pair with loud enthusiasm. The man compliments Amelia's stunning beauty, telling Lore he is incredibly lucky to have such a lady by his side. Flustered but determined, Amelia loudly corrects him, shouting that they are still in the courting phase and she is trying to make him fall in love. The vendor mistakes her desperation for passion and piles extra gifts on them while Lore tries in vain to explain the misunderstanding. Walking away with the bonus food, Amelia proudly claims the freebies were a result of her spontaneous negotiation skills. Lore suggests they eat like commoners, declining her offer to fetch formal utensils for the simple street food. He notes that while she is likely used to formal dining, eating outdoors has a special, liberating charm of its own. Amelia suspiciously wonders if Lore is using a romance guide technique as he offers her a bite of food directly. Deciding to counter with her own move, she leans in to accept the food, hoping to create an intimate moment based on her book's advice. Lore looks confused by her intensity, explaining he simply wanted to hand her the food, not feed her personally. Both turn beet red as Amelia apologizes profusely for misinterpreting his simple gesture as a seduction technique. Slumping in defeat, Amelia laments that she failed to support him and instead made him take care of her again. Lore reassures her that they are just beginning, asking if anyone has ever told her she takes things far too seriously. Though Amelia worries the food stalls weren't a proper date, Lore smiles and confirms he genuinely enjoyed the day with her. She confesses that her original goal was merely to hold hands, yet she somehow jumped straight to feeding him. Calling her out on her overthinking, Lore silently extends his hand toward her in an inviting gesture. He impatiently tells her to decide quickly if she wants to follow the correct order and hold his hand right now. Overjoyed, Amelia grabs his hand, though she internally notes it feels more like a firm handshake than a romantic gesture. Lore coolly states that she can simply ask him anytime she wants to hold his hand in the future. Amelia treasures the simple warmth of his palm, realizing that this small connection carries immense meaning for her. Amelia happily holds up 2 tickets, confirming with a bright smile that the theater invitation is indeed for a couple. They settle into their seats at the theater, where Amelia notes that this play has recently become the most famous love story in the city. She excitedly whispers the rumor that couples who watch this play together grow closer, thrilled that they managed to secure such amazing seats. Her gaze drifts to Lore's wrist, noticing the obsidian bracelet he wears and wondering if he has a fondness for the dark stone. The sight reminds her of a guidebook she read, which stated that lovers typically exchange gifts as a sign of affection. A wave of longing washes over her as she wonders if a day will ever come when she can exchange such gifts with Lore. The play begins, telling the tale of a noble young lady and her devoted childhood friend who serves as her knight. The story unfolds with high stakes as the lady faces the tragedy of being forced into an unwanted political marriage. Despite the obstacles, the knight, who harbored feelings for years, finally confesses, and the 2 lovers run away together. The audience erupts in applause and tears at the emotional ending, deeply moved by the romantic triumph of the couple. As the curtain falls, Lore turns to Amelia and asks for her honest thoughts on the play they just watched. Amelia reflects on the knight, noting how he kept his deep feelings hidden for so long before finally finding the courage to confess. She admits that such unwavering loyalty to one person is incredibly attractive to her, causing Lore to ask if she truly likes devoted men. Lore stares at her with an unreadable expression, his intense gaze piercing through her as he quietly asks if she really means it. He falls silent, staring deeply at her face while the tension between them shifts into something heavier and more personal. Without warning, Lore suddenly pulls Amelia close, shielding her body with his own as the crowd surges around them. Amelia gasps in pain from the sudden impact, pinned against his chest while he protects her from the chaotic flow of people. Lore immediately apologizes for his roughness, explaining he wasn't paying attention to the surroundings, while Amelia blushes furiously. Passers-by chide them for public displays of affection, and Lore apologizes to them while warning Amelia to be careful. He continues to hold her tightly in his arms amidst the staring crowd, telling her to ignore the onlookers and focus only on him. The bustle of the crowd fades into the background as the two stand locked together in the middle of the street. Pulling away slightly, a flustered Amelia thanks him for his help, her heart pounding from the unexpected closeness. Lore silently extends his hand toward her, his expression serious as he prepares to guide her through the rest of the crowd. Calling her careless, he insists on escorting her all the way to her carriage to ensure she doesn't get into another accident. They walk hand in hand toward the waiting carriage, the earlier intimacy lingering in the air between them. At the carriage door, Amelia thanks him for the wonderful day, though she feels a pang of regret that their time is ending. Suddenly, Lore steps in close again, startling Amelia as he closes the distance between them in an instant. He wraps his arms around her in a warm embrace, claiming that in his country, it is customary to bid farewell with a hug. Amelia accepts his explanation as a simple cultural difference, trying to calm her racing heart and hide her embarrassment. Deciding to be brave, she embraces him back, respectfully returning the farewell hug while Lore holds her gently. They finally separate with promises to meet again tomorrow, bidding each other a lingering farewell. Lore watches her carriage depart, whispering sincerely that he too looks forward to seeing her again. Once alone, he lets out a long, heavy sigh, touching his chest as the composure he maintained finally cracks. He stands alone under the sky, murmuring to himself that she is truly an amazing lady. Reading a popular romance novel, the lady muses on the daring romantic lives of high society women. She reflects on Lord Lore's words about wizards weighing down love and fears her own inexperience is failing to make him fall for her. Frustrated after a week with no change in their relationship, she begins to doubt her own attractiveness. A stranger interrupts her solitude, asking if she is waiting for someone. The man notes her long wait and tells her not to look at him with such wary eyes. Another man joins the first, offering to guide her since she claimed not to be waiting for a lover. One of the men grabs her hand to escort her, presumptuously suggesting he could be the person she needs. He suddenly recoils as a strange tattoo-like mark manifests on his hand. Confusion sets in as she wonders why these men are flirting with her. Lord Lore suddenly appears behind her, his presence imposing and immediate. He confronts the men with a cold question, asking if they came specifically to seduce her. Turning to her, he commands her to stay focused and forbids her from smiling at or letting other men touch her. She notices his intense expression and a thrill surges through her as she interprets his reaction as jealousy straight from her novels. Lore reveals he saw the trouble from afar and used teleportation magic to bring her directly to him. He claims she no longer needs guards as he will handle threats personally, while she gushes about the excitement of the experience. Declaring that his protection is sufficient, he decides they will stay in the room rather than going out. He pulls her into a hug while questioning why she denied having a lover to the strangers. Lore teases her for her seriousness, reminding her that he is still in the process of winning her heart. He asks about her health, and she surprises him by admitting she feels more energized than ever. Noting her pale face from lack of sleep, he speculates that his magic might actually be having a positive effect on her. He explains that strong sorcerers radiate energy that affects others, prompting her to ask about magic vertigo. Lore details that magic vertigo is a disorder causing nausea and shortness of breath due to excessive exposure to magical energy. When she asks why she is immune, he attributes it to her lack of magic and her stubborn mental strength. He assures her it is a compliment, suggesting her strong determination makes her less susceptible to the condition. She realizes this overwhelming power is why he previously mentioned women find it difficult to be with him. Lore confirms that the stronger the sorcerer, the more possessive and deeply attached they become to their lovers. Leaning in close, he declares he is no exception and asks if she understands the weight of his bond. He warns that if she accepts him he will never let her go, and she eagerly accepts, promising to return his love in even greater measure. Bringing the topic back to magic vertigo, he explains that the simplest form occurs during the physical excitement of intimacy. He asks for permission to attempt the second level of magic vertigo and tells her to stay still. As he increases his magical output, She describes feeling surrounded by a soft aura. They kiss, and she feels a strange heat in her stomach, unable to resist the sensation. The intimacy deepens as she makes soft sounds against his lips. Their kiss continues, intense and consuming. He breaks away to check if she feels any discomfort, but she feels light as if floating in a dream despite her burning heart. Trembling, she realizes that this deep love is far more thrilling than anything she had ever imagined. Amelia reflects that since that day, her meetings with Lord Lore have mostly taken place in enclosed spaces. She asks him what he thinks about having some tea together. Lore holds her close, mentioning he found a rare tea but suggests they postpone it for later. Flustered by the intimacy, she retreats to her carriage to compose herself as she travels home. She muses that although he gives her deep, passionate kisses, their relationship never goes beyond gentle caresses. Sometimes he asks permission to touch her, and she agrees, but it stops there. A brief moment of silence passes as she transitions back to her reality. Her brother Alec greets her enthusiastically, exclaiming that she is back. He notices something feels different about her, sensing how much she is cherished. Alec's expression shifts as he reveals that the Crown Prince visited them a short while ago. He asks if something happened, looking concerned. Amelia feels a crushing sense of unease at the sudden visit. Alec explains that Lewis insisted on waiting and is currently in the reception room with their mother. She apologizes for worrying him and promises to get ready immediately to see the prince. Smiling, she notes that although Alec will be turning 16 soon, he remains as attached to her as ever. She reflects on his good reputation at the Noble Academy and his hard work to become the future Marquis. A dark thought troubles her about potentially leaving the country, and she resolves to at least make him feel at ease with his family. She gently releases his hand, preparing herself for the difficult conversation ahead. Feeling warmth rising in her body, she dismisses it as nothing and asks Alec to inform their mother she is ready. Lord Lewis apologizes for coming unannounced, stating there is something he needs to discuss with her. The Marchioness excuses herself, telling Lewis there is no need to thank her and to take his time. Lewis immediately asks if she has reached a decision regarding the concubine matter. Amelia replies that she doesn't think this conversation will bring good news. She tells him she still needs time to think, trying to appear composed while internally fuming at his insensitivity. Lewis shifts the topic to the upcoming victory celebration, hoping she will consider it positively. He frames it as a chance for her to make use of her past efforts. He explains that Lydia refuses to let him gift dresses to others but insists on coordinating her outfits with him. Since he and Amelia are engaged, he argues it is natural for them to match. Lewis suggests they wear matching jewelry or fabric accents instead of full outfits to appease Lydia while maintaining appearances. Amelia agrees to choose a dress that harmonizes with his colors, earning his praise for the brilliant idea. Internally, Amelia is furious, wondering what he takes her for to ask her to facilitate his relationship with a mistress she hasn't met. Lewis mentions that Lydia told him Amelia has stopped her lessons as the future princess and asks if it is true. He notes that her instructors praised her keen observation skills and claims the economy would revive if she took the reins. Amelia thinks that her visits to the trade guild are technically not a lie, serving as a cover for meeting Lore. Lewis declares that the country needs her and her presence gives him confidence. Amelia finds the situation absurd, realizing his interest in her was never genuine. She pauses, feigning a sudden realization as she prepares to respond. Internally, she reflects on how tirelessly she worked to be worthy of him and help him become a true king. Resigning herself to the fact that her aspirations never came to be, she agrees to coordinate with his white and blue outfit. Lewis mentions that Alec asked for permission to escort her and asks if that is what she wants. Amelia confirms the arrangement works for her, realizing her smart brother likely knows about Lewis and Lydia's relationship. A young man notices Amelia's pale complexion and comments on it before preparing to leave, prompting her to offer accompanying Lydia instead. As the door closes, Amelia suddenly collapses to the floor, clutching her chest in pain while her companion calls out her name in panic. Amelia forces a smile and claims she is merely dizzy from recent overexertion, assuring the worried young man that she is not in any pain. He advises her to prioritize rest and stop pushing beyond her limits, apologizing for not seeing her off properly before he departs. Alone in her room, the magical mark on Amelia's wrist begins to glow ominously as she clutches it in silence. Amelia lies on her bed wondering if Lore can hear her thoughts right now, quickly dismissing the idea as impossible. Deciding to heed the advice to rest, she prepares to sleep early, hoping to recover from her fatigue. The sudden sound of footsteps interrupts the silence, startling Amelia as she sits up and demands to know who is there. Lore steps out of the shadows with a hood covering his head, quietly apologizing for startling her with his sudden arrival. He inspects the glowing mark on her wrist, confirming that it not only tracks her location but allows him to hear her voice when he focuses. Amelia asks if the mark is why he appeared, but Lore denies it, looking away with a conflicted expression as he holds her hand. He confesses that he deliberately placed the mark on her when they first met and hid the truth because he feared she would ask him to remove it. To his surprise, Amelia beams with happiness, declaring she doesn't mind the intrusion because she has absolutely nothing to hide from him. Lore looks guilty as he asks if the mark has been causing her physical pain or heat over the past few days. He explains that his inability to control his surging emotions caused his magical energy to flow through the mark and hurt her. Driven by jealousy, he demands to know why she lets other men get close, asking what she would do if the crown prince suddenly wanted her back. Lore insists that even her 16-year-old brother is a man with potential ulterior motives, warning her that he already considers her his own. Amelia stares at him in shock, taken aback by the raw intensity and possessiveness in his voice. Covering his face in despair, Lore admits he is terrified that she will drift away from him and that he thinks only of her. He reveals his desperate desire to take her away to his homeland immediately, fearing that giving her time will only lead to losing her. Lore asks if she loves her country, and Amelia hesitates, thinking of her family and responsibilities while Lore waits for an answer. She tenderly touches his face and declares that being wanted by him is her greatest happiness, implicitly agreeing to go with him. Under the moonlight filtering through the window, they share a gentle kiss, sealing their promise to each other. Breaking the kiss, Lore shifts the topic to her dress for the upcoming victory celebration. He suggests designing the dress himself, proposing to incorporate the colors of her hair and eyes into the fabric. He specifically requests that she wear navy blue and gold, asking if she is willing to match the colors of his own attire. Amelia realizes with a blush that navy blue and gold are the exact colors of Lore's eyes, understanding the significance of his request. Delighted by his possessive gesture, she agrees and promises to wear light purple and silver in return to match his hair and eyes. Lore blushes deeply at her counterproposal, admitting that her willingness makes him even more excited for the day to come. He gently holds her hand on the bed, his gaze softening as the atmosphere between them grows more intimate. Leaning over her, Lore whispers his desire to touch her directly, moving to deepen their physical connection. Amelia shyly stops him, explaining that she wishes to preserve her purity until her engagement is officially annulled. She grants him permission to touch her anywhere else, assuring him that she belongs to him in every other way. Lore accepts her boundaries with a loving smile, embracing her tightly as they find happiness in just being close. Amelia silently wonders if possessing such immense magical power is truly a blessing or a curse. Suddenly overcoming with exhaustion, she collapses into her chair while her panicked servants rush to her side. Lore steps forward with a solemn expression, apologizing quietly for the distress his presence has caused her. In a private chamber, the Crown Prince asks Lore if the recent engagement meeting showed any promise of success. Lore reports that the candidate has low magic levels and suffers severely from magic dizziness, making a union impossible. He grimly notes that no one has ever been able to withstand the overwhelming intensity of his magic so far. The narrative explains magic dizziness as a condition where Lore's excessive power physically interferes with and sickens others. Lore admits that his theory of finding a partner with weak magic to minimize the reaction has failed completely. He speculates about the existence of rare geniuses who can absorb his magic and transform it into their own energy. The prince points out that magic is undeveloped here and suggests Lore might find a suitable partner on the continent across the sea. Lore vows that if he finds someone compatible, he will take them with him, even if he has to put a collar on them to keep them close. He stares into the distance, desperate to meet the one person he can finally consider his other half. However, he cynically concludes that it is impossible for a beautiful woman like her to be the one searching for a monster like him. Flashbacks reveal Amelia's bold request for him to be her reward, which Lore initially dismissed as a joke given his reputation. He suspiciously wonders if she is feigning ignorance of magic to hide her true power or if this is all a trap. Watching her closely, he notes that she does seem to be genuinely suffering from the effects of magic dizziness. A sudden thought strikes him as he re-evaluates her reaction, wondering if he has missed something crucial. He stares with piercing intensity, his mind racing to connect the dots of her unusual behavior and resilience. He questions if she might be the only one unaffected by his magic, but resolves to first determine if she is a spy sent by the country. The memory fades as he closes his eyes, shifting his focus back to the present and his resolve to uncover the truth. Days later, Amelia marvels at the design of a dress featuring gold and emeralds, declaring the combination enchanting. She instructs the dressmaker to keep the lace simple to ensure the contrasting colors stand out clearly. The finished jewelry, inspired by the color of Lore's eyes, sits perfectly in its case, completed just in time for the banquet. Amelia holds the brooch to her hair, eager to adorn herself with his colors as soon as possible. Her maid compliments her, noticing that her skin has become noticeably more radiant and beautiful in recent days. The maid teases her, asking if her glow is because the crown prince visited her yesterday. She quotes the old saying that a woman truly blooms when she falls in love, making Amelia blush. Amelia touches the magical mark on her wrist, silently admitting that Lore is the only one who occupies her heart. That night, Lore appears in her room again, sitting casually by the window as if it were a routine visit. Amelia smiles warmly at the intrusion, simply noting that he has come to see her again tonight. Lore asks if his presence bothers her, to which Amelia quickly replies that, on the contrary, she is happy. He gently touches her hand, the magical mark glowing softly as they share a quiet moment of connection. Leaning in, they share a tender kiss, their bond deepening in the silence of the night. Amidst the backdrop of a grand castle, the story of a magician's reward begins with a resolve to escape a political marriage. Amelia marvels at the rarity of such a grand victory celebration, only to be interrupted by her brother calling out to her. Turning to Alec, she expresses her deepest gratitude for his kindness and for fulfilling her specific wish. She reflects on how fortunate she is to have her family, while Alec looks at her with a pained expression and asks her to stop looking at him with such gratitude. Admitting that her duties as crown princess blinded her to reality until now, she receives Alec's assurance that she fulfilled her role as a fiancée perfectly. As they stand before the castle, she quietly asks him to take care of their parents from this moment onward. The heavy doors creak open with a resounding noise, signaling their entrance into the main hall. The announcer's voice cuts through the chatter to declare the arrival of the Marquis Parietta. Onlookers whisper that Prince Louis has already arrived with another woman, pitifully noting that the situation for the discarded fiancé remains unchanged. The king addresses the assembly to introduce a man who saved many lives by relaying messages during the critical skirmishes with the neighboring country. Breaking with tradition, the king insists on honoring the achievements of the magician Lore, who usually refuses such recognition. Lore steps forward to reveal he met a woman while wandering the city, prompting the king to promise that his wish will be granted regardless of what it is. Confessing that he fell in love at first sight but was rejected due to her engagement, Lore formally asks for her hand. While the crown prince watches in shock, Lore vows that if she truly loves her current betrothed, he will step back with honor. However, he boldly declares that if such love does not exist, he asks that she be granted to him as the prize for this victory. The king considers the proposal, musing that a marriage alliance with Lord Lore would be wonderful, and asks which family the girl belongs to. Silencing the room, Lore announces that the woman in question is present in this very hall. A tense silence fills the air as the woman blushes under Lore's gaze, while he looks back at her with a gentle, confident smile. Descending the grand staircase with purpose, he ignores the crowd and looks directly at her. The sound of his boots echoing on the floor is the only thing heard as he steadily closes the distance between them. He comes to a halt before her, bowing his head slightly in a gesture of deep respect and anticipation. Ignoring the stunned onlookers, Lore extends his hand toward her in a silent, romantic invitation to claim his reward. Looking into his eyes, she introduces herself as Amelia Parietta when he gently asks for her name once more. She humbly accepts his proposal, calling it an undeserved honor, while Lore asks her to accompany him to his homeland as his bride. They stand together in a moment of shared understanding, presenting a united front to the onlookers. Lore turns his gaze to the king and calmly remarks that His Majesty seemed already aware of the situation regarding the royal concubine. Feigning surprise at the king's stammered insistence that Amelia is the crown princess, Lore notes that the situation is quite strange. He reveals that during his month of wandering the city, the name he constantly heard associated with the crown prince was Lydia. Lore exposes the truth that Prince Louis repeatedly takes Lydia on inspection tours, making their relationship an open secret known even to commoners. Stating that Amelia has accepted his proposal, Lore reminds the court that the prince's heart clearly belongs to someone else entirely. He vows a pure and true love to Amelia before challenging the king, asking if he intends to break his promise solely for the sake of his son. Promising to dedicate his life to protecting and cherishing her, Lore demands to know if the king now approves of their marriage. Before the gathered crowd, he pledges his eternal loyalty to stand by her side, and Amelia gratefully thanks him for his devotion. The ceremony is suddenly interrupted when Prince Louis cries out for them to wait. Blaming himself for his closeness to Lydia, the prince insists that Amelia must not sacrifice herself because of his mistakes. Amelia interrupts to agree with Lore, while the magician assures her there is no need for guilt as he takes full responsibility for her happiness. She affirms that becoming the wife of the hero is beyond her dreams, though the prince questions if those are truly her feelings. A subtle smile graces her lips as she prepares to speak her final thought. She resolves that if her alternative fate was to be merely a concubine, she would much rather be the prize of a great, immortal magician. Lore shocks the assembly by announcing his intention to take his new wife to his homeland, Rentwer, at least once. The king is stunned to realize Lore hails from one of the continent's greatest magical nations, confirming the mage had a hidden agenda all along. Lore explains that while Rentwer was isolated, they now seek friendly relations with useful neighbors, though they are not afraid to conquer those who offer no value. He coldly notes that this kingdom lacks magical defense and that he alone could reduce the capital to ashes within hours. However, out of respect for his beloved wife's homeland, he proposes establishing friendly diplomatic relations instead of war. The king is relieved and overjoyed by the offer, prompting Lore to introduce a key figure to seal the deal. A bespectacled man enters the hall with a confident stride, drawing the attention of the crowd. Lore introduces him as Langs, the Prime Minister of Rentwer, and instructs the king to discuss official matters with him directly. Langs presents an official treaty and offers a permanent unit of skilled mages to serve as a reserve force for the kingdom. Langs chides His Highness for dumping work on subordinates but agrees to handle the details later, while Lore asks him to join their return journey. The king stammers in realization as Lore apologizes for the delayed introduction of his true royal status. Amelia is shocked to learn her husband is Lloyd de Rentwer, the sixth son of the royal family and deputy commander of the Royal Mage Corps. He points to his golden-green eyes as proof of his lineage and suggests they verify his identity with his kingdom if any doubts remain. Moments later, they arrive at a grand estate via teleportation, leaving Amelia in disbelief that they traveled such a vast distance so instantly. Lore admits he can only teleport to places he has visited or marked, explaining that his powers are not entirely without limit. He explains to a pouting Amelia that being the sixth son meant his title was meaningless, so he lived simply as a mage. Opening the door, he complains that he was forced to earn his own living while his superiors exhausted him with work. Amelia feels distant knowing his real name, but he insists she continue calling him Lore, as mages rarely use their true names anyway. Changing the subject, Lore asks about the woman who was crying at the party, noting she looks exactly like Amelia. Amelia explains that the crown prince likely became attached to Lydia because she physically resembles Amelia, though their personalities differ. Lore's expression darkens with contempt as he mutters that the prince's substitution is disgusting. Turning his focus back to her, he swears he will never whisper words of love to anyone else, brushing aside her doubts. He leans in close, reminding her that there is no longer any reason for her to hold onto her chastity. With intense desire in his eyes, he confesses that he too has been waiting for this moment. He declares his wish to hold her close and be in her arms, bearing his feelings completely. They lean in and share a tender, lingering kiss in the soft light. Lore scoops Amelia up in his arms and carries her toward the bed as she clings to him. He lays her down gently and kisses her neck, eliciting a soft sound from her lips. Amelia stops him for a moment, stammering that she has one request before they continue. She asks him to call her by her name, and Lore agrees, loosening his tie as he warns there is no turning back. Lore explains that mages avoid real names to protect their souls, admitting he slipped up at the ceremony out of habit. He decides that using real names is acceptable between them and gently whispers, Amelia, causing her to blush deeply. Amelia whispers, yes, and confesses that simply being by his side brings her indescribable happiness. She closes her eyes and lets out a soft murmur as she surrenders to the moment. Her hand grips the sheets tightly as she is overwhelmed by the intensity of their union. Lore gazes down at her with intense adoration, their connection deepening in the silence. The morning sun greets them as Lore wakes Amelia with a gentle, good morning. He tenderly checks if she is experiencing any discomfort, and she reassures him that she feels better than ever. Lore teasingly asks if she is homesick, but is surprised when she requests to visit his family just once. Amelia insists she wants to tell them personally that she married him by her own will and is truly happy. Lore listens in silence, his expression softening as he processes her sincere request. He agrees to transport her directly to his family home after their honeymoon so she can pay her respects. However, he dreads the visit, complaining about the hassle of anti-magic seals and predicting his siblings will mock him. Lore reveals he is the youngest of 7 exceptional siblings, with 2 brothers serving alongside him in the Royal Mage Corps. He explains that he holds his high position because his magical capacity is dozens of times greater than the average mage. Amelia touches his face and admits she now completely understands why he calls himself exceptional. Lore leans into her touch and counters that she is the extraordinary one for being able to withstand all of his power. The Crown Prince smiles smugly while informing Lore that the official summons leaves absolutely no room for refusal. He points out that even if Lore tried to route a request through the Royal Mage Battalion, Albus would reject it without hesitation. Feigning brotherly affection, the prince claims he thought it best to deliver the inescapable news directly to his dear brother. When Lore questions the strangeness of a threat disguised as a visit, the prince reminds him of the debt owed for helping with Amelia's homeland affair. The prince insists that it is only proper for Lore to consider this a due debt and accept the terms of the summons. As his brother walks away, Lore bitterly realizes that the Crown Prince never intended to allow him any option to refuse. Left alone with the weight of the conversation, Lore manages a strained expression as he processes the manipulation. Later that day, the atmosphere at the mansion feels off, with a palpable sense of suspicion hanging over Lord Lore's behavior. During a quiet meal, Lore denies anything is wrong, but Amelia notices his distraction and asks if something is on his mind. She observes him closely as he eats, sensing that he is unusually reserved and struggling to articulate his thoughts. To ease the tension, Amelia thanks him for his help in introducing her to the Merchants Guild of the Rentwer Kingdom. Lore is surprised by her speed, while Amelia credits her business skills and the Palco Guild's reputation for finalizing a successful deal. Though Lore insists she needn't burden herself with managing trade guilds, Amelia holds his hand and assures him she is doing what she enjoys. Lore falls silent, his expression darkening as he prepares to broach the difficult subject he has been avoiding. He finally admits that his older brother, the Crown Prince, has requested his attendance at a royal banquet next month. He explains that while he can handle the day ceremonies alone, the evening banquet requires a partner, prompting Amelia to suggest they prepare new outfits. Lore warns that her former fiancé will likely be there with her home kingdom's delegation, offering to decline the event if it causes her discomfort. He reveals that reinforced barriers will restrict his magic that day, confessing that despite the danger, he cannot imagine anyone but her by his side. Gripped by fear for her safety, Lore admits he is terrified that something might happen to her if her former fiancé approaches. Amelia smiles confidently amidst the flowers, teasingly asking if he truly sees her as just a weak and helpless girl. She agrees to go, reminding him that as a former marquis's daughter, she is well versed in noble etiquette and looks forward to the carriage ride. Proposing they have matching outfits made, she internally resolves not to let him face the banquet alone. Despite a lingering sense of anxiety, she cheerfully tells Lore that she is excited to attend the banquet by his side. On the day of the event, Lore compliments her stunning appearance, and she returns the sentiment regarding his perfect attire. As they walk together, Amelia notices the worried look never leaves his face, though she silently appreciates his concern. Entering the grand hall, Amelia steels herself against the nervousness, knowing that any failure to adapt will reflect poorly on Lore. Whispers surround them as nobles mock the Beast Prince and his foreign bride, making Amelia realize he wanted to shield her from their contempt. Watching him, she feels grateful for the strict training she received as a Crown Prince's prospective wife, knowing she can now be his support. Reminding him of the victory banquet where he first chose her, she expresses her desire to walk beside him as his equal. With closed eyes and an open heart, she pledges to share his burdens and protect him, standing proudly by his side no matter what. Lore comforts her anxiety, but Amelia grasps his hand tightly, reminding him that as husband and wife, supporting each other is a mutual duty. Amelia internally vows that Lore is her most precious person, swearing she will never allow anyone to bring him harm. Lore flushes with happiness at her resolve, admitting with a gentle smile that he truly cannot keep up with her strength. The king addresses the court to announce a revolutionary magical energy storage device invented by Captain Albert Lux and Vice Captain Lloyd Rentwer. In recognition of this monumental contribution to the kingdom, the king declares that both men will be awarded the Medal of Honor. The ceremony proceeds with solemn dignity as the medals are pinned onto their uniforms amidst the silent awe of the crowd. The king further announces that Lloyd will be granted the title of Duke, formally expelling him from the royal family to join the nobility. Gasps fill the room as the king reveals that Lloyd's new domain will be the Marshall Fief, a vast territory formerly under direct royal control. Amelia recognizes the resource-rich land from her studies and worries about potential disputes, while objections immediately erupt from the gathered nobles. The nobles argue that the land was seized by the crown decades ago precisely because its immense wealth made it a target for constant warfare. The king acknowledges the rising tide of objections but remains calm and unmoved by the protest. Critics point out that the land requires a massive magical barrier and constant supervision, a burden too great for any single ducal family to sustain. Prince Louis silences the room by reminding them that his brother, the so-called Beast Prince, possesses an unlimited reservoir of magic sufficient for the task. He adds that the land's management is perfectly suited to Lloyd's wife, whose expertise in mining and trade will ensure its prosperity. The narration explains that the kingdom enforced strict monogamy to control magical bloodlines, as the fear of magic poisoning had turned people against mages. Lloyd steps forward to declare that today marks a correction of those outdated values, demanding rightful recognition for the strongest mage. The hall erupts in applause as the king looks on with pride, and Lloyd and Amelia stand united against the changing world. Amelia blushes with overwhelming emotion, her heart swelling at the public acknowledgement and the dawn of their new life. As the sun sets, the couple retreats to a quiet balcony, leaving the noise of the celebration behind them. Lore comments softly that it is clear Amelia's family truly cherishes her, sensing the love that shaped her upbringing. He realizes that her immense talent was born from the deep love between her parents, proving the old adage that true love produces gifted children. Looking at her with intense affection, Lore admits that his own transformation and happiness are entirely because of her. He confesses that he once believed he had no place for emotions, but now his only desire is to take her home immediately. They share a tender, passionate kiss under the moonlight, sealing their vows and their love for one another. The silence is shattered by a sudden disturbance, cutting through the romantic atmosphere like a sharp blade. A voice shouts Amelia's name, causing Lore to turn with a sharp glare, furious that anyone would dare interrupt them so rudely.